Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I'm back in Seattle after my annual family reunion in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. While I would tell you what's going on inside my head and with my emotions around not having Ange there, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you another story. So this whole deal has me questioning God. I'm not sure if there is one, and I don't know about spirits or ghosts or anything. And while I did believe there was a God at one point, I never really believed in that other stuff. And since that's the stuff that I didn't believe in, I've defaulted to the idea that Ange is dead and she's gone and that's it. There's nothing else from her, and that sucks for me and a lot of other people. But that said, that didn't stop me from trying to get a sign from her. I went out in Seattle a few weeks ago, and I was drinking beers, and I ended up playing Pop-A-Shot. And I was like, Ange, and I did this in my head, I was like, Ange, help me break the high score. And no shit, I broke the high score. But the problem with that is that I am really fucking good at Pop-A-Shot. I always break the score, or a lot of times I break the score, and I can't really credit Ange for that because of the skills I have with the Pop-A-Shot. So, fast forward to me at skee ball in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware last week. One of the first nights, I played 4 games, and my first 3, my high score was 300. That's respectable for a 9-ball skee ball game. Then, in my head, I asked Ange for some help with a couple hundreds, and I shit you not, I got 5 100s in a row, and my total score was 580. I won the biggest prize in the building, and when I was leaving, I thought to myself, I'm really good at skee ball too. I can't really credit Ange for this one either. But then I thought about it, and 580 points is an unbelievable score. I'm really glad I took pictures, because the rest of the week, I'd walk down to the skee ball area just to ask the workers what the highest score they ever saw was. 10 different employees later, and the best score any of them had ever seen in their lives was 550 points. The reaction to them seeing my photo with 580 behind my head was priceless. They were all almost shitting their pants. A couple people pushed me like, you gotta be kidding me. And while I am good, I am not the best player to ever roll the skee ball on the boardwalk of Rehoboth Beach. And I really think that Ange had to be with me. There's really no other way to explain it. That was crazy. And there will be lots of Ange and my new reality in the next 2 episodes where I do the best of inappropriate questions for 2025. When I do those, I do a lot of talking, and based on what I've been going through, you can bet that some of that'll be weaved in there. Hopefully it won't be a total downer, but you never know how I go. But now it is time to talk about this week's guest. And while I had legendary photographer Lee Cohen on the podcast last week, I was able to get his son, pro skier Sammo Cohen, on the show this week. And while I used to ask a lot about money, and I still do that, I bet that I'm going to be asking a lot more about death in these podcasts, as that's all I can think about lately. So before we talk to Sammo about all the things that have happened in his life and the people he's lost and all that different stuff, I want everyone out there to look out for the Ange-a-Palooza information that goes online today. If you are coming to Seattle for this weekend of events, let me know via the email address on the flyer, and we will do our best to make sure you fit into that Sunday celebration, because it is going to be a limited amount of people that we can have there, but it is going to be a lot of limited people, and it's going to be pretty awesome. Other than that, there are so many different things throughout the weekend. One that we want everybody to come to is on the 23rd at the Admiral Benbow, where it'll be karaoke. That's Ange-a-Palooza. Other than that, it's time for a podcast. And before we get into it, I want to make sure that you tell a friend about the show, because if you like the show, I think your friends are going to like the show too. And I'd love for you to share my social posts. That does help get more earballs on the podcast. Finally, and most importantly, I want you to support my sponsors who make this show happen week in and week out. They've stood by me through the good, the bad, the ugly. They are Elan Skis, Stanley, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, and Liquid Force. Now, it's time to chat with Sammo Cohen. When I interviewed your dad a couple weeks ago, I started off asking him questions about being Jewish, and he wasn't really feeling my line of questioning. Were you brought up Jewish?
No. So both of my folks are from New York and from Jewish families. I can't remember if my mom had a bat mitzvah or not. I'm 99% sure my dad had a bar mitzvah. But the closest thing I came to being Jewish was I took a baseball camp at the JCC, which Jewish Community Center.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with them. Did you light the Hanukkah candles and say the prayer or anything like that?
Yeah, we lit the candles growing up. Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure. So you were part of the tribe. Like you felt like you were like on the other team than Christmas, right?
Yes.
You had Chinese food on the 25th.
I mean, we didn't eat Chinese food, but yeah, we definitely didn't celebrate Christmas. We didn't get a tree as far as I remember, but obviously I'm from Utah, and so there was one other Jewish kid at my school.
Oh, so you guys were like outcasts in Utah as well. I forgot about the whole Mormon thing.
Yeah, which is pretty funny. And then like all my buddies at Christmas, they're getting Xboxes or whatever. And, I get a pair of socks.
Oh, because Hanukkah wasn't cool?
No, it wasn't that it wasn't cool. It's just different, And so I think, honestly, it's kind of helped me in a sense of like, I'm not very materialistic. And maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. Like I truly value a pair of socks or like a belt, like gifts that I can actually use. And at some point I had an Xbox and we played it a little, but it just lived in the garage most of its life until it lived in the garbage.
Fair enough. We're going to not totally leave the Jewish thing because my last Jewish question will be, who is the best Jewish skier of all time? Your dad said you.
I mean, I would have to dig deep to find out which Jewish skiers even exist, to be honest. Plenty of mega East Coast skiers that rip way harder than I do. We just never heard of them because they have real jobs.
All right. Well, yeah, you couldn't think of a Jewish skier either. It sounds like your dad couldn't, and he just picked you because you're his son. He's the only one he could think of. But religion's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I think that's why it's coming up in the podcast, and I guess you can obviously think why. But you've lost a ton of people in the mountains over your life. But who was the first person that you lost that had a huge impact on you?
Man, I mean, there was kind of this string of people that left my life around age 18. And I'll kind of give you a little pretext to this one. But essentially, when I was 18, I had turned 18 before January 1st, and I was competing on the Junior World Tour at the time.
Okay.
But that year, senior year of high school, they kicked me off the juniors, just, the date thing. That's all changed now. But so I found myself in Revelstoke competing with the men. And I was the youngest competitor in the field. And my buddy who I drove up with, Jason Astle, he had shattered his arm, like splintered his humerus apart in the qualifying day. Neither of us were pre-qualified. So back then you had to go qualifying day. If you made it into the day one, you got to make top 12 or something on day one to get into the finals. And so he had to go home, and I found myself there alone. And I bonded with this guy, Ryan Hawks, who was an East Coast skier. And he knew my buddy Silas. He was part of that squad, like Dylan Crossman, Lars and Silas Chickenaires. And I'd competed with Silas, and I knew Crossman from back home. And Ryan, he just extended out a hand. He didn't make it into the final day, but I remember him helping me out with my line choice and just being a homie, right? And at the time, he was dating my buddy Johnny's sister, Angel.
Everybody loved that guy, right?
He was all time, Flying Ryan.
Yeah.
And yeah, later that season, he crashed in Kirkwood and ended up passing away. And that was pretty heavy. That was heavy, I mean, to say the least. And then following that, Jamie Pierre, and then Jim Jack. And I knew Ryan the least out of those three, but he, like I said, he just extended out a hand to me when I felt no one was really there. And it was like my first trip to Canada, and I was still in high school, and just, it was all pretty overwhelming. And so that was pretty hard when he passed away. And then Jamie was a really close family friend. I don't know if you talked to my dad about that at all, but yeah, he was a homie. And he, I mean, on the religion topic, was kind of a religious nut, honestly.
Jamie Pierre was?
Yeah, like if you watched, I mean, he was, I want to say he was Catholic, and you watch some of his old clips and stuff, and he would send these massive airs, right? Classic Jamie. I mean, what people didn't know is he was actually an incredible skier too, but he would send these massive airs, and he would talk about how God was on his side. And that was pretty peculiar in that era of skiing, especially. Like, skiing used to be a lot more like punk rock, you know?
Yeah, Brad Holmes wasn't talking about Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and then Jim Jack. Jim Jack was kind of a fixture in my life for as long as I remember. And obviously just a legend, and was so great to so many people, and was the head judge of the World Tour and the Junior World Tour. So he had a way of just bonding with all the kids, and yeah, he was a great dude. And then, I had a few that were quite a bit closer to me after that, like my friend Bryce Astle.
Oh yeah, you Bryce.
Yeah,
You had a roommate, right?
that was later. That was more recent. But Bryce, we grew up together, and that hit Little Cottonwood really hard. Like, all of my buddies who I grew up with, and, myself included, obviously. Patrick Orton was after that, and that was tough. He was like a budding ski photographer who was incredibly talented. He passed at age 24.
Jeez.
And I was 20 at the time. Yeah, that one was pretty tough. Then I remember Matt Heffernan passed away after that.
Well, that guy was such a great dude too.
Yeah, legend. And he was like, I was never super tight with him, but I would, he came out, I want to say he went to the University of Utah. And so I would just see him all the time, like whether it was on the ski hill or at a concert or whatever, kind of tight knit community. But yeah, my buddy Mason Bowes, who I lived with, who is one of my best pals, we spent every day together. We were skiing up on Denali together, and, lived together all summer. And then, yeah, that was tough. We were kind of talking about where we were going to go climbing this one morning, and I decided to go bouldering. He and a couple other buddies of ours and his girlfriend went to climb at a spot that, I've been climbing at since I was a kid. And yeah, rockfall.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. I mean, when that shit happens, and it happens so much to you over and over and over, I mean, when thinking about a higher power, because lately I've been thinking, like, the way my wife went, it makes me believe that there's no God because no one would torture her. And then I think of like Hitler and other world leaders. Like, how could a God put people like that on the planet? But you've seen so much shit in life. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And do you have to look to that to kind of deal with loss, or what do you think?
Oh, man, I don't know. With Mason, that one hit me the hardest. Just, we were so close and hung out every day. And then right after, I went to South Dakota and hung out with his family a lot. I was trying to make sense of it all, and what kind of helped me see it through, and I've noticed it with Bryce too, and Jim Jack, it's like, when you're on this earth, your legacy is fluid, right? Like, it could change any moment. Like, you could suddenly have some act of terror and be remembered as a bad person. With these guys, like, when they passed, their legacy was cemented in time, right? And we remember them for who they were and what they did up to that point. And so, like, Mason was 26, so much life to live, yet he left such an impact on every person he met. And we all will remember him for those things, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think it's a kind of a nice way to remember people. It's like, we'll remember them for what they did and who they were, not what they would have had the chance to do, really, because you never know what could happen later. And that kind of helped me make sense of it. And, more recently, like, Michael Gardner passed away, and we competed, and I've known that guy since I was 15 years old, and he did such great things. And yeah, he could have done more had he spent more time here with us, but we'll remember him for all the great things that he did do.
All right. Well, I got way off topic for the beginning of a podcast, and I always do that. I get way ahead of myself. But I know you're a Utah kid, and I went to your dad's place in Little Cottonwood Canyon once. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up at the mouth of Little. I don't know which house you went to, but actually I just bought a house around the corner from the house I first lived in. But essentially, as you're going up Little Cottonwood Canyon from the valley, you're coming up Wasatch Boulevard, and you go through this last light that's everyone calls the Lakai light. There's this fancy restaurant, Lakai. I've never eaten there. It costs way too much for me. But to the east of that is some neighborhoods that were once affordable.
Right.
And that's where I grew up, on a street with a bunch of kids. And None of them were like big skiers or anything like that. Just good community. I played baseball growing up for many years, and my mom worked at the Alta Lodge. And so I would go up with her on the weekends, and she would drop me at ski school. And then at the end of the day, I would take the rope tow back over to the Alta Lodge and take that rope tow up. And there was tea time is what they had around 3:30, 4 o'clock when I was done with ski school every day. And Mikey Beppu, who was the guy doing tea time, would put on a ski movie for me, and I would sit there and eat cookies and hang out until my mom was ready to go home.
So you're born into it, and the mountain is pretty much your babysitter. But what I'm thinking about is
Right.
when you have a world famous photographer dad, Lee Cohen, and your mom works for the mountain as well, so it's like a full income coming from skiing. Is it rich, poor, or average? Like, how do you do in the ski industry?
I mean, I don't know how people are doing now. Like my dad, in his era, it was a lot different. We're talking the 90s.
Yep.
And he was one of a few guys really doing it. And he was making a real living off it too. I mean, I don't know how much my mom was making at the Alta Lodge. I can't imagine it was some fat paycheck. She's working at the Alta Lodge.
Sure.
But she was in management, and, we weren't poor. We definitely weren't rich. But through the connections my dad had in the ski industry and his connected Alta and my mom's connected Alta, I was always able to have skis.
Yeah, like
And
skis and a pass
ski
and
pass.
ski program and all that shit. That was all the ski stuff you had for free?
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think I would have been a skier if we didn't have those kind of connects, because skiing is just so expensive. And my love for skiing kind of really changed later on. Like I really loved it when I was in going into high school. I had a big knee injury and I missed a whole season when I was like 14 or 15.
Okay.
And then after that injury, I just was obsessed. I don't know what happened, but something changed there because I really wanted to be a baseball player. Like seeing dudes make millions of dollars and play baseball, and I loved the sport. It was just so fun, and there's so much charisma with you and your teammates. And yeah.
So you have that aspect, but then you also have like the snowbird ski team, and I would think everybody where you are is a really, really good skier. Like, who are the kids on the snowbird team with you?
Yeah, so the snowbird team, so essentially there's kind of an evolution. It was like ski school, and we had this thing, Alta Youth Club, AYC, and we developed AFD, which was the Alta Freeride Division.
Okay.
And that was this new thing. And the snowbird team was like budding, it hadn't really, like they had the SBSEF, the Snowbird Ski Education Foundation, and they had a race team. And that was a big thing. There were a lot of great racers coming out of there. But freeride was still new. The tour was very small. Like now there's so many events and so many kids. It's kind of crazy. But by the time I moved down to snowbird, Leo Ahrens was one of the most talented, naturally gifted skiers I've ever known. And he was on the team, and I grew up skiing with him. His parents also worked at the Hill. Grant Howard and Neil Howard, and their dad, Sam Howard, also amazing skier, ski patroller, still ski patrols. Johnny Collinson, dad is Jimmy, and he ran snow safety at Snowbird. And his mom, Deb, she kind of invented the Alta School, which was a lot of these kids who lived at Alta and Snowbird went to school under Deb's thumb. I mean, every skier on that team was so incredible, and it was kind of wild. We would go to these events and pretty much sweep. There was a handful of kids, like Michael Gardner was one of them, and he would stay with us, here and there. He was from Ridgeway.
Okay.
And then this kid, Miles Honins, was a Tahoe kid who was really good. Then we had Silas, who was really good. There was this Alaskan, Zach Halverson, who became a really good bro of mine, who would come down and stay with me for like the competitive season. And a lot of these kids would travel with our team because freeride teams weren't really a thing yet.
And so you guys are like a traveling posse?
Exactly. And so we would get a house. Everyone would stay with us. Rob Greener was our head coach. Man, those were such fun years. I was never that great at competing. I just couldn't understand the formula of it all. Like I did well in a couple contests, but it wasn't my forte.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start out with Liquid Force. And not only are they back supporting the podcast, but this summer, they're bringing back the most important party and event in wakeboarding. That's right, Brostock is back, and the contest features the best riders in the world. But you know what's more fun than watching the pros ride? Riding with them. And you can ride with the Liquid Force pros like Daniel Grant, Claudia Pagini, and Gunther Oka at a local lake or cable park near you at their Ride with the Pro Tour. And while Liquid Force is doing all these great things to build community on the water, they're also on the forefront of product innovation. And if you're a foil frother, you're going to want to check out the new FuseLock foil system. Wake surfers are going to love the all-new Ace and Synchro offerings. And the 2025 line features fresh boards, rad graphics, and more comp vest colorways than ever before. Park to boat to foil, Liquid Force has gear for every rider type, whether it's boat, cable, foil, or surf. To find out more about the events and the products, head on over to liquidforce.com. And when you see something you like, put it in your cart, and when you check out, enter the code POWELL15, that's all caps with no spaces, and you will save 15% off your order. Liquid Force, feel the pull. Next up, it's Elan Skis. And Elan doesn't need to support this podcast in the summertime. I've said that every summer. But they do it because they understand the importance of cultivating the stories that make the snow industry what it is. But if you haven't noticed, while they've always been big in Europe, Elan has built a growing cult following here in the States. It all started with the still thriving ripstick revolution that made skiing easier and more fun for anyone that tried them. That same idea, easier and more fun, is what they delivered to their Playmaker series of twin tips. How does Elan deliver a better ski experience? Well, it's all about using the best materials known to man. And that's no joke. This is the same Elan that's known for building award-winning luxury yachts. So they never cut corners. And the fit and finish is better than anything else on the ski wall. Seriously, if you pick one up and you look at the edges and you see those seams of glue on all the different skis, look at Elan's and you're going to see a seamless pairing because they do take that additional time to pay that attention to detail. And it's awesome. And it makes everyone feel like they're making pro-level turns. And that's what skiing is all about, that feeling. So remember, before you buy your next pair of skis, demo a pair of Elans, or just head on over to elanskis.com, pick a pair, and elevate your skiing experience. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing. And while I love the taste of a good beer, I don't always need the alcohol. I mean, my life revolves around driving my kid places, running errands, interviewing people, managing my family, and all of these things I do better when I don't have a head full of alcohol. That's where Best Day comes in. These days, if I'm not partying, I'm still having beers, and those beers are from the award-winning Best Day Brewery. And there are a lot of NA beers out there right now, but none taste as good as Best Day. I love the hazy IPA, the Kolsch that you can get on all Alaska airline flights, and everyone seems to like the Electro Lime Cerveza. I could go on and on as they have so many flavors, and I love them all. The beauty of Best Day is that they average about 60 calories and they won't get you in trouble. And pro tip, if you're partying, try to mix in a Best Day for every alcoholic beverage you have, and it will extend your night. It does it for me, and it keeps me from doing anything stupid. To have your best day or night ever, head on over to bestdaybrewing.com. If you make that order over $50, we'll also throw in free shipping. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Your first contest, though, like you go to Revelstoke for your first Free Ride World Tour event, and given you don't win anything but the Sick Bird of it, like award, which is like one of the coolest things that you can win at one of those events at your first event. That has to be like pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to win the Sick Bird. I don't think they still do that, but yeah, that was in 2011. It's kind of crazy. I feel like I'm getting old, and yeah, that's pretty wild. And the year before that, I had won the Crystal Mountain North American Ski kind of championships for juniors, but that was it. Like outside of that, I didn't do very well competing. I think a year later, I got third at Wrangell to Shoot behind Logan Pahota, who had won it. And I don't even, I've gone on trips with him now, and we're buddies. I don't know how old he was then. He must have been like 17 years old or something.
Yeah, he's been shooting for a long time. And so I interviewed him. I think he started like when he was like 10 or 11, and then had a little break and started again when he was like 15 or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Leo, and I've seen Leo ski in person, and it is jaw-dropping for sure. I've also seen Leo at the bar, and it is jaw-dropping for sure. Why wasn't Leo a bigger name in skiing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much there, but like okay, as far as natural ability goes and vision, this kid had more vision than anyone at the age of 16. Like kids just don't really have vision when they're 16 years old.
Right.
And he just could see it. He could see a double backflip off the box rock in Crested Butte as a 14-year-old. And, people talk about these kids doing doubles now, but he did it in 2009.
Yeah.
And he landed, and then he made 2 turns and exploded. But they awarded him with the young gun, and it kind of took off for him from there. And, he was just so, so gifted. He picked up Solomon as a sponsor at a really young age, and they were buffing him out. He filmed with Matchstick, Poor Boys, Warren Miller, all in the same year. He won most of the contests he ever entered. I remember he went to Cold Rush when we were still in high school, I think. And day one, the Big Mountain Day, it was when it was in Silverton. He ended up in 3rd, something like that. And, I think that his own personal vision and agenda got in the way of his own ski career. Honestly, it was kind of hard to watch. He was just so good, and we're still pretty close. He lives down the street from me, and he had a hard knee injury a few years ago. He hasn't fully recovered and gotten back on skis, but he'll still go up and first run of the day just throw a cork 10 off some random hit. It's crazy. It's honestly crazy. But he, some might call it ego. I'm just going to call it, I don't know, interesting personality that clashed often. And we had our little film company, the Dubsatch Collective, and we were out making ski films or short videos and putting them online and trying to get sponsors for it and stuff. And so he and I and our buddy Nate were kind of a little trio putting this together, and we'd film all of our buddies. Coulter Hinchcliffe worked at the Peruvian, and we would film him, and our buddy Hayden Price, who was an amazing skier, and Johnny, and just everyone around Alta. And Leo and I worked side by side. We were just best buddies, and we would clash often. And I think that later on, it just ultimately cost him, chance at the top, really.
27 grand a year.
Exactly. Cost him a huge paycheck. But now, he films, he's the head of the video department at Coolwear. And, he makes far more money than he would skiing.
Yeah, good for him, man. I mean, a lot of people play around as a pro skier for a while, and then they have careers. Most people aren't pro skiers forever. So I'm glad to hear that he's on his feet and doing well. And then, a lot of the guys in the Alta area, or that whole crew, it wasn't like you guys were all driven to be pro skiers or to be the Palisades kind of rock star skiers. It was just everyone was good, but was everyone driven to be pro, or is that just something that happened?
I think it was more just something that happened. We all just loved skiing, and there were so many good skiers around, and we were skiing all the time. Let's take Andrew Pollard, for example. Andrew's parents run the Rustler Lodge. Andrew's dad became the mayor of Alta. Andrew's the prince of Alta, and he just skis every single day. Every day he's out skiing. He's coaching. He just loves skiing. And that's just the guy his name, right?
Yep.
Ross Tester, Andrew Pollard. But my other buddy, Griffin Rasmussen, who's the head coach for the U18s, he's the dark horse, unbelievable skier. Grew up competing slopestyle with Colby Stevenson, worked his way over to Little Comet Canyon, and once he learned how to get out of the park and really ski and put an edge in, I mean, watching him ski is unbelievable. And it's just everyone just loves skiing. I think that a few of us, I know Johnny wanted to be a pro skier, and I know Leo wanted to be a pro skier. I wanted to be a pro skier, but a lot of that was it was always around me.
Yeah, you were born into it, right? I mean, people say nepotism or whatever, but you were lucky to get opportunities that other people might not have had just because you were born into it with your dad, and that's why you got free skis and shit as well. How often when you were younger would you go shoot with your dad?
Oh, rarely. I did not like it. I would shoot with him. He used to have he had a really good deal with Columbia for a long time, and he would have these Columbia kids shoots, and then he would have kids clothing from Patagonia. Those were kind of 2 of his biggest clients back then, and he would want me to wear it and shoot. And it was kind of I wasn't that into it. I didn't really love having my picture taken. So it was a tricky balance, and it still is actually. It's almost trickier now than ever. We have an interesting relationship. Like, we're best buddies, right? And there's a lot of fire. We got two kind of fiery personalities, and we both see things a certain way. And one of us is going to be biting our tongue. And I know it's not him.
Yeah, totally.
And I also know it's not me. So it's just kind of tricky. Like, I've been trying to get better about it, but shooting is such an interesting thing. I know people love shooting and they love to get in front of the camera. And the older I get, the less I like it. It just feels like it takes something away from it. It's like in Zoolander when she asks him about the Aborigines and how a photo can steal a part of your soul. I feel that way. And I just feel like let's say you make a turn or you ski a line or whatever, and it felt a certain way. You have an image of it in your head that is awesome. And then I'll watch the footage and all I can see is the thing I did wrong. And that, it just ruins it for me. Like, I just want to be stoked on skiing. And, it's hard in this era to just let your skiing do the talking. Like, you gotta be talking, gotta be posting.
Yeah, there's so much more to what used to be being a pro skier. But in thinking about and shooting with your dad and as a kid, did it ever get to the point where when he didn't bite his tongue when you were a kid, did he ever have you in tears during a shoot?
I mean, I don't know if I would say it's his fault. Like, I would work myself up. I get all worked up and heated. And when you're a kid, you don't have the greatest way of managing your emotions. And yeah, like, you get all fired up and cry or yell back or storm off into the Albion Grill or whatever you're doing. Like, yeah, for sure. And that was one of the reasons I loved playing baseball, was because I didn't have any of that.
So when you start shooting with other people, I mean, is that like a direct, not like slapping your face to your dad, but it was like, I'm going to go make something for myself without having you shoot me?
Yeah, I wanted that for sure. I mean, a lot of photographers it felt like they didn't want to shoot with me. Like, Leo and Johnny were shooting with Adam Clark or Steve Lloyd or whoever, Brent Benson, and I just hadn't gotten that chance. And I think a lot of that was because I was Lee's son.
Was there any jealousy on your part of like, you can't shoot with those guys because of your dad?
I wouldn't call it jealousy. No, eventually Steve Lloyd, I think he was the first guy that I shot with outside of my dad. And the first day we went out, we got something published. And it was like something about the Supreme chairlift, top 10 chairs or something in Powder Magazine. And I did some like rodeo off a cliff in Dry Fork, little zone behind Alta, and it got published. And from then on out, Steve wanted to shoot. And then from there, someone else wanted to shoot. And eventually I started shooting with Will Wisman. And he kind of took me under his wing, and we traveled all over the place. And I begged him and got up to Haynes and spent everything I had out there skiing with him and shooting. And
we're going to get there, but we're going to go to high school really quick. When you think of high school, sure. I don't think you were like a bad kid, but outside of skiing and climbing, were you like the stoner kid, the crazy ADD kid, the jock, the outcast? Where did you fit in?
Well, yeah, this is an interesting one. So 9th grade, I had straight A's. Like, it was just cake. It wasn't difficult. I just applied myself, like, barely. But then I was telling you, I blew out my knee.
Yes.
Right? And in that time, a lot of my buddies, I had this really good buddy who lived down the street who was a year older than me. And out in Utah, we have grades 7, 8, 9 is the middle school. 10, 11, 12 is in the high school. Right?
Okay.
So I was still in the middle school. And I was hanging out with all the kids who were in the high school all of a sudden. And they started smoking weed and drinking and partying. And I couldn't ski. I was just bored. And so I started doing that. And I got in trouble a couple times, actually. And it was just unfortunate. Like, my buddy had been driving around with his headlights off, and we got pulled over. And suddenly I'm 15 years old and handcuffed. And, it's Utah, right? We're not in Colorado. They're serious, and they've eased up a bit these days, but they're serious, and they want to make an example of a kid. And I got in trouble, and then I got suspended from school at one point, and it was a weird situation where I'm not even going to get into the details of it, but got in trouble, got suspended from school, and they offered me a 10-day suspension, and this was on a Thursday, right? Or I take the Friday off and take these courses, kind of like AA for 15-year-olds or whatever. And my mom said, you're taking those classes. My mom was serious about school, and I was not. And my grades were slipping. I wasn't taking it seriously. So that Friday was this epic POW day, and my dad and I went out shooting, and she was pissed, man. Like, she was really pissed off. And obviously looking back, I can see why.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, that was sick. Like, that was an epic day. We got some shots. That was great skiing. Oh, that was just everything, right? Like, shoot a run in the morning and then just go ski all day. And Alta wasn't crowded back then. Like, nothing compared to what it is now. So you're skiing all day. You're not waiting in lift lines. And as high school went on, I started to have this thing where if I wanted to do an assignment, I'd get an A. And if I didn't want to do it, I just wouldn't. And so I had this report card of A's and F's. It drove my mom insane. And I, like I said, I can see why. And I still managed to get it done. I took winter trimesters off to compete in skiing. And I still graduated with like a B average. I had to do a bunch of online work that I blew off every trimester that I was skiing. I just wouldn't do it. As you can imagine, a 15, 16, 17-year-old, I'm not sitting there trying to do schoolwork. I'm trying to go skiing.
For sure. I mean, and at 17, 18 years old, I feel like, you were in Warren Miller, like while you were in high school, right?
Yeah. So things started taking off. And also, like, I discovered rock climbing too. And rock climbing all of a sudden just controlled every moment that I wasn't skiing, like doing pull-ups, going to the climbing gym, going to Little Cottonwood and bouldering. And we discovered this area at Joe's Valley. I mean, we discovered it for ourselves, this world famous bouldering destination that's like 2.5 hours south of here. And I had this little red Ford Ranger that I got junior year of high school. And my buddies and I, we would pack up the Ford Ranger Friday and we would just rip out from the school lot and head down to Joe's and stay there all weekend and just boulder until our fingers were like bleeding. We had no concept of self-preservation. We just could care less. We just wanted to be out there bouldering. It was like total freedom, right? Like, skiing was freedom, but there was adult supervision. I had a coach or whatever. But climbing, there were no adults. We could do whatever we wanted, and we did, for sure.
So, I mean, your parents are pretty much like, we'll see you in 72 hours, have a good weekend every Friday out of the parking lot. And then it's pretty much, you guys weren't being terrible because you're climbing a shitload, but you're doing everything that you want to as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, our main focus was climbing, but like, yeah, we'd be out there climbing and smoking weed and whatever. Nothing out of the ordinary. But it's crazy to go to Joe's Valley now, 15 years later. And back then there weren't even bathrooms. Now there are bathrooms and campgrounds and so many people. I mean, obviously climbing is trending these days.
Yeah.
It just wasn't then. Like, there were a couple of us in our high school that climbed and people legitimately made fun of us for it.
You had to be pretty hardcore to do it because at 17 years old, just the strength and like the dedication it takes to be able to not die to doing that shit, you have to really work.
I guess. I mean, 17-year-olds want to go party and hook up with girls and just do that thing. And I just didn't care. I just really wanted to go climbing.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm going to start things out with Outdoor Research. I've been using OR products since I moved to Seattle almost 25 years ago because they outperform everything on the market. I mean, they build their products to perform in the wet and soggy cold weather of the Pacific Northwest. And when you live where we do, you need to have the best in class. While OR has always been known for building industry-leading gear for mountaineers, skiers, and snowboarders, they've gone all in on an award-winning bike line that FreeHub describes as Outdoor Research has once again raised the bar, offering riding gear that's not just functional but also stylish and durable. That meticulous design and thoughtful engineering of the Freewheel collection have the power to transform the mountain biking experience. So high praise, and Outdoor Research is doing a lot of things on the athlete side. While they launched with an incredible team, they had the Van Steenbergen brothers, Georgia Asley, This year, they've added Casey Brown, Carson Storch, and others. And between the athletes and the events they support, while OR might be new to the bike world, they've always lived it, and there's not many brands doing what OR is doing in the world of bike. To see the new products and what the hype is all about, head on over to outdoorresearch.com. My final sponsor is Stanley, the iconic Northwest brand that invented the category of keeping things hot and cold over 100 years ago. You remember Stanley from your grandfather's green thermos that kept his coffee hot forever when he took you out on adventures. Well, Stanley still makes that bottle and so much more. Think tumblers, water bottles, barware, camping utensils, coolers, vacuum bottles. There really is something for everyone at Stanley. And between the unique colors and the collaborations that Stanley's doing, there really is something for everyone in the Stanley line. And they're not going to gouge you with crazy prices. Stanley is the originator, and they pride themselves on providing you and me with the best products at the best value. And that value gets even better when you shop with my code. To use it, head on over to stanley1913.com, go shopping, and buy a ton of stuff because, like I said, this code is 30% off. It's the best deal that Stanley offers. And when you check out, enter the code capital P-O-W-E-L-L. That's Powell 2025. So no spaces in between that. Capital P-O-W-E-L-L 2025. That's where you get your code. Thank you very much for the support, Stanley. They make the best gear in the world. You've seen them everywhere. And if you don't have one, you definitely need one. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. We said that you started doing some stuff with Warren Miller while you're in high school. Do you start having sponsors and everything like that come together while you're in high school so you know that a ski career is something feasible?
Yeah, so I had signed with Faction. I had signed with Faction and Scott Sports. And Scott was my first sponsor ever, actually. And that happened when John Atencio was there.
Okay.
And he was buddies with my dad. And, he knew like I was going to get out shooting. And it was as simple as send me a couple pairs of goggles, right? And then I started getting on the podium. And I had signed with Faction. And I had a global ad in Powder, 2-page spread. And then I had signed a deal with Dakine through Chico Bukovansky.
Yeah.
And it was actually Chris Benchetler had kind of seen one of my videos, I guess, and put in a word. And all of a sudden I had another sponsor. And yeah, the Warren Miller thing, that was when, do you remember First Ascent? It was like
badass climbing thing that the Chris brothers are all involved in.
Exactly. And so those boys in Wisman, they got me involved with the First Ascent program, and they took me under their wing, and we went and did this. It was an Avi 1, but it was like an in-depth Avi 1 when I was 15 or so, 15, 16. And we skinned out to a yurt in the Idaho backcountry in the Sawtooth Range. And it was like Tom Ways and Lel Tone, Reggie and Zach Christ, Lindsey Dyer, Lexi DuPont was there, Ty Barrymore, Coulter Bremer. It was kind of like a bunch of heavy hitters. And I'm just 15 at the time. And yeah, so I knew a ski career was possible, long story short.
Okay. Yeah, that is a heavy-hitting crew that you're with. And Eddie Bauer, First Ascent, was spending so much money back then. They were really going to do something special until someone came in and was like, we don't need this anymore. And then they just disappeared.
Yeah, totally.
It was pretty weird. So who's the first brand to actually pay you with money?
Probably Scott. That was my first check, I want to say, real check, a few, not real, but a few $1,000. Which
is awesome to get paid to go skiing.
And you're 18 years old or 17 or whatever, get a little bit of money and go to Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sick. And the crazy thing about your career is you alluded to it earlier, but you you bet your college savings or whatever your parents set aside for you on an Alaska trip. So it's you get ready to graduate high school and you've got all these things going for you. And I don't know how much money is saved away for you, but what happens when you tell your folks, hey, I'm just going to go to Alaska for a month and see if I can make a ski career happen with all this money? Were they like, okay, you've got a shot?
Yeah, they were backing it for sure. There was a discussion when I decided to not go straight to college that was, if this ski thing isn't going to work out in a couple years, I'm going to go to school to be a mountain guide.
Okay.
And things just started rolling after, like you said, I kind of put everything I had on myself. And, again, Reggie Christ and Will Wisman, they saw something in me that apparently they liked. And so they wanted me up there and let me stay at their house. And kind of put me up. And again, I'm just a kid and I didn't realize how much they're doing for me at the time. And I look back and I'm just eternally grateful.
So, I mean, I thought you might have just gone there like just with money and trying to figure it out, but you had these mentors who were able to show you around a little bit, which is nice to have. But when you get to Alaska and you're young and you start to see the peaks there, and I'm sure it's like mind blowing and it's probably intimidating as well. And in the thought process is it like, I'm here and I've got to fucking send it so other people are going to see me and then I'm going to get more opportunities because you're there to produce a career, right? To kickstart one?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both there. Like there was part of me that was thinking, this is my chance to do something, to make something happen here. Like there's not many 20-year-olds up here doing this. And if I do it and I do it well, it's going to speak. And that was a big thing for me for sure. But even more so, I was obsessed, man, with Alaska. Like I would sit there at my house and just visualize what it would be like to ski a spine. And I would go around Alta and I would try and find these little spines and these steep zones. And we had all of our little zones like Leo and I would go to and Andrew Pollard. And it was all kind of preparation. And when I finally got there, I remember my first line. It's a famous zone in Haines called Light Meter. And all the clients are standing right there. And Reggie kind of is like, all right, get in there basically. And there's this semi-truck sized cornice that guards the zone. So I like chisel in around from the side and I start booting up underneath this thing to get on top of my line. And it was like March 20th, something like that. So it was still pretty cold and the snow was blower and the slough was running super fast and the line went really well for me. And, I remember I was with Lindsay Dyer that evening actually, and she skied kind of like the client spine out to the skier's right. It's crazy. Like this stuff is still in the movies. Like that line that I opened up that day, Kate Zelliff skied a couple years ago in Matchstick's film, which it's just kind of crazy that these same lines are still getting shot, but they are that incredible and they're aesthetic. That's for sure.
They're the shoulder of AK skiing.
Pretty much. Yeah. More or less.
But when you go on that trip, I mean, I think that first day might have worked out for you, but did you hurt your knee pretty early on in that trip?
Not that trip. That trip was good.
Okay.
I spent the whole spring up there, like 6 weeks or so, and I didn't get that many days, but I did get some days. And near the end of the trip, I skied this new line that hadn't been skied, and I did this 360, and it worked out. And I remember before, so we were waiting for this zone all day, and we didn't have a private heli like you would filming these days, or even then too, but I just didn't have that kind of budget, right? And so we're working around the clients. Like we go out for a quick run before the clients, and then midday we're sitting at the airport and the heli has to come in for fuel before it starts pulling clients out of the field, and we go in on a fuel run. And we just kind of wait until all the clients are gone and we have the ship for like 2 hours.
Okay.
And I melted, man. I melted down. I had gone and scoped this line and I had this vision of what I wanted to do. I wanted to go from right to left and gain this proper spine and then do a 360 off the end of it. And Wisman's like, dude, yeah, right, blah, blah, blah. And we go to the zone and it's in the shade. And, I'd spent money to get out there and I didn't have much. And to go scope this line one day, and I straight up started crying. I started throwing a fit, man. And the girls, Jackie Edgerly and Lindsay Dyer, I don't know what they were thinking, but either way, they put me up on the line and the sun came back. Like the sun had moved behind some mountain and it came back and everything worked out perfectly. And we dubbed it Temper Tantrum.
That's perfect.
It was pretty funny because that is not my thing. Not a big crier, and I'm passionate, but I'm not going to, hopefully, at least these days, that has settled. Now I'm a lot older, but it's a weird thing when you want something so bad and you care so much and it just like controls your emotions and you start acting out.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying in a totally different way recently, but, in thinking of you going the next year then, because I guess that's the year you got hurt, right?
Yeah, so that first year was 2013. Then 2014, they were having a really bad season. And there was an avalanche, and Aaron Karitis was killed. And he had stayed at our house earlier in time. He was a guide who worked for Dean Cummings up in Valdez, and he was working in Haines that year. And they shut down shop and closed for the season. And Wisman, Reggie, and I, we went to Iceland instead that spring. And 11 Experience was working on a new operation, and we got to go cherry pick a bunch of new lines and just go skiing. And it was a great trip. And then after that season was when I got my big break, basically, with Scott. Like, I'd left Scott for some years, and that summer I was out climbing, and I basically got a message from Topher, who was running the show at Scott at the time. And, I called him back and told him I'm on the road. I'll hit you up when I'm back in town, kind of thing. And I was definitely scrapping at this point. Like, I was broke.
Just dirtbagging it.
Oh my God, man. I mean, I was staying in my car for months on end.
Yeah, you lived van life before anybody else, I feel like.
I don't know about before anyone, but yeah. I was staying in my Ford Ranger.
Okay.
In the back, and I was out climbing in Squamish, and I was just living, and I got a lucky opportunity, and I got back to Salt Lake. Scott moved from Sun Valley to Salt Lake, and it's kind of a long backstory to it, but Greg Epstein, who was working at TGR at the time,
the jerk,
he put in the word that I was someone they were interested in shooting. And so that went a long way, and Scott signed me. And yeah, kind of that spring went to Haines with Dane Tudor, who was my teammate. And we were having this amazing session. And yeah, I took one big spill and broke a helmet and lost all my gear. And then the next day had like the best day. And then the following morning, I took another really nasty crash, and it put me out for like 3 weeks.
I interviewed Dane, and that was the year that he should have won like every award possible and closed the movie, but he didn't because he didn't have the right sponsors.
That guy is such an unbelievable skier. And, in my opinion, I think a lot of people's opinion, just one of the greatest to ever click into a pair of skis. Innovative, hard charging, could do it all. Truly do it all.
Everything.
Like in the front seat of his boot, sending big airs, aggressively hammering turns, and then pulling triples. Like, I've never seen another skier do that, period. Yeah, he definitely had maybe a little bit of a difficult personality, right? And I don't know the nitty gritty details of it because he's just a buddy of mine, and we butt heads a little bit in the field when we were out filming that season. But yeah, I mean, he absolutely killed it. He filmed with us for a few weeks, put together an amazing part. Then he went to fantasy camp, put together an unbelievable part. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy that he isn't still neck deep in the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to him and I talked to Johnny, and I think Johnny was saying that, like, we had to have Solomon close the movie, and Dane didn't get it because he wasn't on Solomon. And then at the world premiere, I think Cody and Dane got in a fight. But that's just, shit that happened a long time ago that doesn't need to be talked about anymore, but I just talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, he's just another dude who's passionate, and he's such a good skier that he can back it up. But sometimes, everyone's got to take a turn, right? And you hear about these stories of certain big time athletes who are kind of a nightmare to work with because every line's their line. But at the same time, like, maybe they are going to just ski it better than you. I don't know, but you still got to share, right?
For sure.
Sharing is caring.
And, thinking of how your career, you said you had your big break, but when I think of the things that you do, it's kind of like you never had to win contests, and that was never going to be the way that you're going to be a pro skier. But you're like this dude who goes on adventures and looks into all the beta, gets all the details. Hey, we're going to bushwhack here forever, and we're going to sell this project into a sponsor. I'm going to convince a friend to do it, and we're going to go out and create this thing that might be great. It might not, who knows, but we're going to try to do it. Is that kind of like what drives you, is going on adventures and creating the plans and finding the beta and doing that kind of shit?
Yeah, man. I mean, I love adventure and I love getting people on board, and yeah, that's a really fun aspect for me. I truly love producing. It's not the content, but like early on at Scott, there was a conversation. Basically, the first meeting I ever had, they were like, "What do you feel about filming with TGR?" And I told him, yeah, that's most kids' dream. And I think that would be great. But what if we take that big, oversized chunk of change and we apply it in-house? I'll create a pitch. We'll go shoot. We'll have a photo, a video. We'll create a product on the back end, but you guys are going to see content in hand. You will get content, period. You can create ads. You can do whatever you want with this. It's not going to be some tit for tat money thing. It's like you own it all. And they love that. And that gave me this freedom to be able to go and create my own vision. And that was something I really love and value and miss, honestly. It's something that I miss a lot. Those days were special, and it was cool to have everyone on the team in. Like, it was all about the fam, right? It was like I would get my buddies to shoot photos. I would get my buddies to shoot video. I would put my other buddies who are amazing skiers in full kits from Scott, and we would go make a video.
And while those videos were rad, in thinking about it and thinking about your career, if you could go back 10 years or whenever you guys are talking about going on your first adventure, and you're sitting in that meeting room, and the guy's like, what do you think about TGR? What if you were to be like, I need to be in TGR, and they start putting you in TGR movies? What does that do to your career? Does Sammo Cohen become a much bigger name because you're in the biggest movie that's coming out every year? Or being that you're in a Scott movie that's like the 9th or 10th biggest movie or edit or whatever that's coming out every year? I mean, could you have kind of directed them into something that was better for you, but you kind of went for the whole team?
Yeah, I've thought about that quite a bit over time. It's obvious, like, going into a big movie at that age increases your stock massively. And if I'm looking at it from that point of view, yeah, if I'm worried about Sam Cohen being the biggest name that can be, yes, you go that route. But I didn't care. Truly, like, it wasn't my focus. I just was psyched on skiing, and I wanted to keep skiing. And looking back, yeah, I would have made more money. But also, who knows? Like, I could have been killed in some ridiculous accident. Like, I have no idea. I'm happy with the choice I made. And those years were the best years of my career. I mean, it's funny because Johnny and I talk about this stuff all the time, and we chose different paths, right? Like, he wanted to be a rock star, and he got that vision. And you know what? He always saw the grass greener where I was out skiing with my buddies, which was interesting because I was like, damn, this guy's making money and I'm out here scrapping, but I'm having a great time. Same deal. Grass is always greener. But now these days, like, I just did my 5th year with Matchstick.
Yep.
And I love working with those guys. It's great. And they have given me quite a bit of leeway in planning trips and kind of putting stuff together, but it doesn't feel the same. Like, I don't have any control. My thumb's not on the project. Like, I go bust ass and try and create a trip, and then I just hand it off to someone.
You just got to show up and work hard, right?
Totally. Yeah, that's something that has been kind of a dilemma in my ski career. Internal conflict the past few years is I still want to produce, and I have these things I really want to do that are personal goals, and it's almost like I'm out of touch with that part of myself, the producing part. Like, I could go do these things, but do I want to create a pitch deck and send it out to people and bust ass to try and raise a bunch of money? I don't know. I mean, the last time I did that, I blew out my knee and I destroyed my knee. Like, not Johnny bad, but like, I did ACL, MCL, meniscus, and
it's a lot.
It was just a bummer. Like, I busted ass that season. That was 2019. And I had this vision, this 3-part video. It was like one segment here at home, one in Haines, and then I was going to go to Mount Waddington.
Okay.
And I was so excited about it. Like, it wasn't this blown up thing yet. Like, Cody hadn't gone there. Like, it just was a smaller thing. Like, I knew about it because I read climbing guidebooks. And I was like, oh, there could be some mega skiing up there. And I had worked so hard that year. I had raised all this money by myself, like, just raised a bunch of money from a bunch of companies and was just grinding, carrying tripods, hassling everyone to get out, just doing every single thing I could. And we filmed all season at home and we did well. Like we did pretty well. And then first run in Haines, I crashed. Yeah. And then I had to sit there at the Fort Seward Lodge calling companies on the verge of tears, right? Like I'm just calling people, hey man, like I just blew my knee. This movie's going to change. If you want to pull out, I don't blame you. And I lost a bunch of the funding.
Well, you're never supposed to call them up and say, if you want to pull out, you can.
Still make it
good.
No, man. It's tricky though. Like I just had
You got your business acumen from your dad. Damn it.
Yeah. He's like that too though. Like he wears his heart on his sleeve and he's just an honest guy. And
yeah, that's what he was telling me. He was like, I could have been better at business. I probably could have made 30% more. Yeah.
He undervalues himself more than any photographer I've ever seen. All these young guys, they pick up a camera and they're like, oh, here's my $5,000 day rate. Like, dude, I've never even seen your photo.
Yeah.
But that's just, the modern day, I guess.
Well, speaking of your dad, we're at a point in the show where I'm going to bring him back up again because I do something that I end my shows with, and I'm going to end the show right about now. We could talk about what you're going to do next, but we'll figure that out during the ski year, and we'll figure that shit out regardless. At this point in the show, it's time for what I call inappropriate questions. You know this because you asked some for your dad, and I asked them to him last week, and they went pretty well. I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions. This time you can guess that it is your dad, and I was able to get him to record the questions so you can experience what inappropriate questions is really all about. And are you ready for question number 1 from legendary photographer, aka your father, Lee Cohen?
Yeah, let's hear it.
2 years ago, you got caught in a really big avalanche where you had broken your protocol. I know you're usually very careful about where you ski, but tell us a little about what happened that day.
I mean, he said it right there. I broke my protocol. I went out. I'd been digging a bunch of pits every day, trying to see when north was in, and I could identify this weak layer in all my snow pits, but it wasn't reacting at all. Like, could not get a result in a snow pit. And I was planning to ski a south facing. We were in a weird like midwinter corn cycle basically. So I was going to ski a south face and I was going to go rock climbing. It's like a weird multi-sport day in January. And I decided to drop into the north facing in a zone that I've been skiing for 15 years, and it was tracked out. I mean, there were hundreds of tracks back there. And skied one run, snow's all right, go back up, ski another run, open up like a little slot that hadn't been skied, and it skied awesome. And I was testing this new Crux boot from Head, and it was my first real runs on it. And I was getting really excited because I felt it, like I was able to just feel the boot, and I was like, oh man, this thing's going to work. And it got me stoked. So I go back up, I'm skiing a third lap. I decide to pick off a piece of terrain that I shouldn't have. Obviously, everyone's an avalanche professional after the avalanche. But yeah, third turn in, I triggered this deep hard slab. Initially, it broke like 2 feet, kind of right at my feet, hit a thin spot, and I could see the whole slope shatter 1 to 2 meters deep. And I was just going for the ride. I was wearing sunglasses and a beanie because I was just dicking around, right? And that avalanche, I mean, when I see avalanches like that, I would call it it's a fatal avalanche. It was huge. I mean, the chunks of snow were so big and my toes were locked in, and I just took a huge ride. My ski snapped in half. I was pretty banged up after, but in a situation where it easily, and I'm just surprised that it didn't kill me. Ultimately, I was just grateful. I was beating myself up though. I held it together right then, and my friend Diana comes down to me on her split board, and she's obviously worked up, and I'm kind of cracking jokes like, oh, that was a bad idea.
Right.
And I was stuck. I didn't get fully buried. I was buried like halfway, but like one of my arms was buried in my legs. And like I said, my skis were still on. And so there was this weird angle at my leg. Like it was torqued all crazy. And I got some really bad bone bruising. That was pretty much the extent of it. And outside of the, emotional trauma. But when I got home that day and I looked my girlfriend Bailey in the face and I had to tell her what happened, and that's when I kind of broke down, and I knew when I was sitting there in the debris, that moment was going to come. I was going to have to call my dad and tell him what happened. I was going to have to call my mom and tell her what happened. I was going to have to call Coop over ahead and tell him I'm off snow for a bit. And the humility of that was pretty hard. I felt a lot of shame. I just fucked up pretty badly in my backyard. And, you're supposed to be leading by example, right? So ultimately, I just had to own up to it, and kind of right away, buddy who works for the guiding operation that I work for, he has a local podcast, and he wanted to get me on there, and I was a little hesitant, but I thought maybe this will prevent something.
Yeah. I mean, if you can stop one person from doing it, that's all that really matters, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's inappropriate question number 1. They get a little bit lighter as we go along. Let's go question number 2.
So I know you've had problems with motion sickness. Remember going to Telluride when you were a little kid and you hurled massively just before we got there? How has getting motion sickness affected your life as a pro skier?
Yeah, I still get motion sickness. I have 2 little recounts on that. I mentioned how I went to Iceland, right?
Yep.
And we were scouting. We were looking for new terrain for this heli-op to start up, basically. And Reggie's telling the heli to go over here, telling the heli to go over there. And we're just flying around. And I elbow Wisman, and I'm green at this point. And I pull my glove out and just puke right in it.
Oh.
Just puke right in my glove. I was just like, didn't know where else to puke. And I had some more gloves in my bag. And I threw up in my glove. I thought that was kind of a one and done thing. But a few years ago, I was with Logan, Wheezy, and Kate. And we're up in the Tords. It's our last day of a film shoot. And we've been flying all day trying to scrap together. It's our first like mega day of the trip. And same fucking thing. Like we're flying around. We stop and we ski a couple lines. And I thought I was good. But then we start flying around looking for this last zone. Literal same exact thing. I just pull out my glove and throw up right in my glove. And Logan gets out of the heli, and I get out of the heli, and I'm staring at him. And I'm just staring at him, and I start pouring it out on the snow. And he starts dry heaving.
That's me.
And yeah, it was pretty nasty. It sucks because I like really want to go to like Pakistan, and the travel is the thing that's keeping me from doing it. But I just got to take some Zofran or whatever and just knock myself out.
For all the things that you do, you should be able to at least make the flight happen. I'm going to go into your last inappropriate question.
Yeah.
It is my favorite one. Here we go.
I know you and I are pretty open with each other, but what's the one thing I've never found out about?
Man, honestly, that's a tricky one because he knows everything at this point. I mean, I feel like he must know this, but when I was a teenager, I just had this nose for finding his stash.
Yep.
His beef stash. And like I was relentless about it too. Like I would just sniff it out. And I remember he had this jar in his sock drawer, and I just went in there and started plucking all of these primo nugs out of his weed jar. And it got kind of crazy. So we'll call it a troubled youth. And I took this vial of his weed to school with me. And at lunch, these kids and I decided to walk down the street and like smoke some weed in this like abandoned barn, basically, like pretty much.
Okay.
And this cop rolls up, and we all run out the back of the barn, and I'd just like thrown it in the bush or whatever. And we're running away, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey." And we start talking to him, and this kid who is like, just smooth talker, this kid Brady Larson, starts telling the cop how we were just eating lunch, officer. And, he lets us go. And next period, I took the hall pass and ran back down there and found my weed. Or I found his weed.
Awesome.
But, yeah, kind of a derelict moment.
Yeah, well, kids do that to their parents, I think, at points. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but that is Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And looking at your life and times, it's like you were born to be in print. and you were in print at a very young age, and you did Columbia and you did Patagonia, and you were doing kid shoots and ski acting, but really you weren't born to be a ski actor. You were born to be an adventurer, to create adventures and to bring your friends along. And you were able to do that for like 5 or 6 years, create some of the best trips in the world. You traveled more than your badass photographer dad and went to more places than he ever did in your pro ski career. And that's pretty cool. You've never had to win. You've just had to be really passionate and really on the ball and always wanting to be on the hill. And it's a cool story. I thank you for sharing it, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
So that was time with Sammo Cohen. And even when you're born into a direct route to being a pro skier, nothing is easy, and everything Sammo got was earned. Nothing was handed to him. For Sammo, he had to break away from shooting with his famous father and gamble his future on a ski career. That takes some serious balls and belief in your talents, and it worked. On top of that, it's the first time I've had back-to-back Jews on the show, but you know what? Religion doesn't matter to me. People do. And Sammo is a rad person. That's the show. At this point, please review me wherever you listen to the show. Shoot me an email with any questions or concerns or whatever else you have for me at mike@thepowellmovement.com. And please, please, please support my incredible sponsors. They are Elan Skis, Stanley, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, and Liquid Force. Have a great week, everyone.